10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yo. Hey,
we're good. Hello, everybody.
I hear us in the background. You can turn us off.
Oh,
there you go.
Oh, sorry.
You love us so much, you're going to watch us twice.
Technology gets me all the time.
Hey, everybody. It's New York
going,
Pete,
everybody?
and I'm the Tipsy Toaster. Oh, that's definitely not New York Pete.
He's had too many dirty water dogs. It's John one.
It's a John one over there. Where's Pete? We lost Pete. Darn. No, Pete. Pete's out exploring the universe, trying to find himself. Wandering about somewhere in Europe, I believe. So he is not here this evening. So it's just two wild and crazy guys. The Cylons
Everything goes tonight.
landed. That's everything goes. Yeah, we have a great show lined up for you. But so you know who we are. We are Interfleet Broadcasting. We are a 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s, all-around sci-fi, pop culture broadcasts. We love to talk about old and new stuff. We got news. We've got reviews. We have interviews, and man, I'm a poet and didn't know it tonight. I'm just a rhyming fool.
Oh,
look at that.
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I had to write all that down. I could not do that again if I tried. So it looks like we got quite a few people out there. I see Lola.
Yeah.
Her name was Lola. She was a show. Robert, hey, our own fact checker. Chuck's out there. Pete is lagging so bad he's still yesterday.
Hey, friend.
That's so true. He was having some lagging problems, and now he's lagged so bad he's not going to be on until next week.
His phone. He's using a phone dial-in.
Hey, Karen. Let's see who else we got.
Oh,
Karen, Bert. Hey,
Yep,
Mr.
Brand.
Yep, Bert Oliver. Thank you for joining us again. If you did missed our interview with Mr. Bert Oliver, you need to go back and see that again. That was just what was that? 2 weeks ago, or a week ago? I can't even remember. Time flies so fast.
That was last week.
Was it last week?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting individual. Check him out in his books. Let's
Awesome
see.
book. Hello, Kim. Hello, Fran.
Yep. Looks like yep, Kim, I think is Karen, Kim. Dorian's on. Strange. I didn't get notified.
James McLaughlin.
That happens there.
Wow.
Dorian didn't get notified that we went on the air.
Mediocre Mahler. I
Yep.
like the.
Oh yeah.
Working on that.
If you haven't been watching, check
Moth
out Mediocre Modeler's new cosplay he's working on. It's been interesting. He's really big into
great.
it now. He's sanding and
He's
painting.
getting in there.
Once again, he's got more talent than I do. Oh, Daggett's in the background. Daggett's in the background. Can you get rid of the Daggett?
Minions and Daggets are running around. Like, oh, quiet.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nothing of that. But once again, we are here every Thursday, so we're glad you joined us. We're going to have a good show tonight, and we got Tiny Bean on tonight, too. So we'll start off with our traditional toast. I don't know if Tiny Bean's got something to toast with. Nod your head if you do, and otherwise I'll leave you off. Okay, she's good. So I'll bring Tiny Bean on, too. There we go.
All right.
Sound check.
Hey guys.
There we go. So
How's it going, everybody?
just the three of us. We can make it if we try. Just the three of us without Pete.
I love
No Pete. That's a negative on the Pete. So, what do we got tonight?
Silent time is the best time.
That's right. We'll take over. I'm so disorganized since I moved. I can't find my Cylon rules sign anywhere. I must have filed it somewhere. Who knows? You can see what a mess I have behind me. It's just a bunch of stuff. It's
starting to look good.
Yeah, my computer's still in pieces to my right. Matter of fact. There's one of the culprits. Hard drives.
Oh my!
Solid state drives. Yeah, they're supposed to be good forever, but evidently these didn't go so good forever.
Nope.
So now I have to reload everything. But hopefully that's it. Nothing else blew out. Anyhow, what do you got tonight to drink there, John?
I have a brewing company, a local brewing company from a town I live in. It's called Kings Park Brewing Company, and it's Harrison's Blonde, and it's American Kolsch beer. So it's like a golden amber, and it's 5.5% alcohol.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
A Kolsch. Where's it from?
Kings Park Brewing in Kings Park, New York. That's where I live.
Ah.
That's what
What's your address again?
What time should we be there? I don't know.
Trust me. It's the internet.
I was going to get the other beer, but I couldn't find it. There was another thing that Kings Park's known for. It has a big psychiatric center in there, so now we just walk around the creepy psychiatric center.
Great.
That's
But
right.
there's actually a big building of it on a beer can, but I couldn't find it, so I'll probably get next time I'll see it. I'll bring it on.
What do you got tonight, Tara? Some wine?
I am my typical cheap white wine. I believe it's the Gallo family.
Oh my gosh, you remember the old Gallo commercials?
Of course.
I wish I could remember exactly how they went.
What was it? You'll sell no wine before it's time.
Son, I think that's it. That's it?
Was that Gallo?
What time was it? We'll sell no wine before 5 o'clock.
So, what was it? Orson Welles said it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now we're aging ourselves.
Oh.
I've heard stories of this. I don't know.
Yeah.
There you go.
My grandparents told me about it.
Yes, exactly.
My grandparents told me. That's all about it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. It says Eric Penn says that was Paul Mason wine. Masson?
Oh, thank you.
Oh.
Yes.
Paul Masson.
Masson wine.
I don't remember. Now I'm going to have to look it up after the show. You know how that goes.
Seriously.
Then 45 minutes later, you're off on some wild tangent watching. You're soaking in it, and what was some of the other good lines? Ancient Chinese Secret. Like suddenly you're in the commercials of the yesteryear, and you're like, wow. But my favorite was always
Time to make the donuts.
Yeah, the shake. Yeah, the time to make the donuts. Where's the beef?
Where's the beef?
Yeah. The movers, the shakers, the coffee generation. I did that the other day, and the people looked at me like, what? I don't get it.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah.
That's done at me now, too.
You darn kids. You darn kids.
Kids today, get off my lawn.
So I went to the beer store before I came on tonight because we ran out of interesting beers. So I bought another large amount of interesting beers at the beer store and brought them in. So tonight's beer is... I better get full screen here. It's much more fun that way. There we go. The Claw Brewing Company, Patriarchy, 3 scoops Neapolitan Stout.
Oh.
Ooh,
Yeah.
That's gonna be chocolatey.
I don't know.
Is that chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry?
It's supposed to be. We'll see. I don't know if that's going to taste very good together. Says, the patriarchy. What's better than one scoop? 3. We're bringing your childhood staples straight to your grown-up taste buds by packing in rich vanilla, strawberry, and decadent dark chocolate flavors into the classic Neapolitan ice cream. Ewing, New Jersey, DeClaw Brewing Company. Reaching out, and I'll let you know how this goes. It is handcrafted. We'll see how that goes. So, anyways, we'll go back to us. You ready to open up there, John?
Yes, sir.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3.
All right.
I'm gonna wait all week to hear that sound. Let's see what this looks like. I got my Midtown Comics. They get a free promotion every time we go on the show here, practically. Hey, throw some money at us so we can buy some more beer. So let's see how dark this is.
Oh.
It looks pretty dark.
Okay, here it is.
More.
A little bit of a head on
That
there.
looks pretty yummy.
It's dark. Look at that. There's no light through that thing. That is totally blacked out. Should get a flashlight and measure lighting through. How many lux can we get through this one? It smells good. So,
Nice.
anyways, we always toast the fans and the people out there. So it is important that we remember that the fans are the important people that drive the fandom, and there are the people who create the fandoms as well, as they would be the writers and the directors and the actors and sound engineers and all the people that are behind the camera as well as the people that are in front of it. And of course, it's all because the fans feel the
Fans feed the fleet.
Oh, bravo, guys. How is it?
All right. Well, I can't taste the difference between chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla. They're all mixed together. So it tastes like stout.
Yeah.
There's definitely a chocolate in there. A little bit of strawberry. I think the vanilla gets drowned out. Man, it's pretty good. It's a little,
Yeah.
almost like a sour taste of it, too. That's not bad. Not one of my faves, but... Oh, wait a minute. I tasted strawberry that time. Boy, this thing's like everlasting gobstopper, or what is it?
It changes flavors.
Changes flavors as you drink it.
It's a whole meal.
It's a whole meal.
Dessert.
Here comes dessert.
Careful with the
Oh, it's
blueberry.
blueberry. If I start turning
Next is
blue.
gonna
Oh my God.
You taste the snozberry yet?
The snozberries taste like snozberries.
Snozberries.
Snozberries. So great.
But it does change taste as you drink it. Maybe the drunker you get, the more it has a taste too. I don't know.
Yeah, the way you believe it says.
All right.
It's 7% alcohol, so that would be
Oh, all right.
14 proof, right? Or 7.5% alcohol, so it'd be 15 proof.
Yep.
That's not bad. Not bad at all. So, was that a boxed wine, Terry?
No, this is actually like legitimately Gallo.
Ah.
Gallo Chardonnay. It's delightful.
It's delightful.
Yeah. It's the backup stash because, power outage yesterday and all that storm stuff. And so I'm like, I'm not going to the store. What do I have in storage? Oh, look.
Oh, look.
No offense, Gallo.
Listen,
but you're my
It's so good it has a screw top.
Exactly. Quality.
Quality
It'll keep
is
you warm.
quality is
Yeah.
set up by a screw top. It's got a screw top. You know it's high quality.
Convenience, if you will.
They saved money, so they didn't put any corks in it, so they can make it taste better. So they use a screw top. That's the excuse.
There you go. Oh, man.
Kim says tequila tastes like questionable decisions.
Ooh,
Yes,
that it
yes.
does.
That's why I don't drink it no more.
Those days are gone.
Oh
Kim,
yeah.
Kim says we know way too much about wine commercials.
Oh, yeah, it's true. It's what we've heard.
We were doing commercial references. Here's one. Calgon, take me away.
Oh my gosh,
Oh.
I said that the other day to a coworker, and she paused, and I was like, "Oh man, she's not gonna notice." And she said to me, "She goes, you're lucky I'm old enough to get that." I was like, "Hallelujah! Not the only one."
Oh my gosh. But they had such good commercials back then.
wow.
I mean, can you name a good commercial now that has such a great tagline? I can't think of one off the top of my head. All the other ones that we used to watch were, always stuck in your head, but I cannot.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody can help us and think of one out there. I cannot think of one that.
That 1-800-CARS for kids thing drives me crazy.
Oh no! I know one.
1-800.
I know one. What is it? You want a structured settlement, and I want cash now.
Cash now, OJG
Worth
It's
187 cash
now.
now. See, that was one that you can remember. It's kind of recent.
So when we make the IFB commercial, remember it needs to be catchy.
It needs to be catchy. IFB. Jesse.
Place to be. The place to be on a Thursday night.
Place to be. There we go. IFB, the place to be.
That's it.
And it is.
It is. It is. That's true.
There you go. That's right there.
Mr. Bomer is hit it right in the head. When we were kids, there wasn't that many channels. So we always saw the same commercials over and over again.
And
So-
you had to sit through them. You
And you had to sit. Yeah, you can't fast. Nowadays, you go Netflix and everything else. There's very few commercials, but the commercials on Netflix are going to be for another Netflix show. There's no catchy Chef Boyardee or anything.
Right.
I don't even know a chef. I can't even think of a Chef Boyardee one. Oh, I remember Mikey though.
Of course, Nike.
Yeah, let
Mikey.
Mikey try it.
Mikey will eat it.
Mikey will eat anything.
He hates everything. Oh look, everybody, Mikey's eating it.
Classic.
Hamburger helper.
Oh yeah.
Man.
I like Clay. Clay's right. IFB, when it absolutely positively has to be Cylon drinking beer.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Fran's like, they made them so annoying you had to remember them.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. Some of them are,
Cream.
the soaking, it's palm olive. You're
You're
soaking
soaking
in it.
in it.
Like, I would just stick my hand in. That's weird. It's just like,
Don't squeeze the Charmin.
I was just
Oh,
about to
Mr.
say that.
Whipple. Mr. Whipple. Mr. Whipple.
Oh man, that's a
Don't
great.
squeeze the Charmin.
Are you stop squeezing the Charmin? But you're squeezing it, Mr. Whipple. Schaefer beer, the local one in New York. Schaefer is the one beer you have when everyone. While you're
Schaefer, yep.
is the one beer
Rheingold.
to have when you're having more than one.
Yeah.
My baloney. Yep, Kim, that was a good one.
Oh,
My
gosh,
baloney.
don't even-
Maloney
Yeah.
has it first name. Oh wow.
It-
That's now it's gonna start getting stuck in my head now. My baloney has it first
First
name.
name.
Quick! Switch
Too
to
late.
Toys R Us.
Stuck in my head.
commercial.
Oh goodness.
Toys R Us. I don't want to grow up. Oh, come on.
Yep, that's another one. I
Yep.
don't want to grow up.
Yeah.
Hey, Baz.
Singing those songs I don't know if I know.
Baz says it's morning. Oh yeah, so we want to start talking beer commercials. I'll mention one more beer commercial. We'll get off the subject. We really kind of went a little off. But my favorite beer commercial was the Olympia beer commercials. where it had these two old men on the rocking chairs in the front of it. I was like, yeah.
Oh.
I said that Olympia beer is made with artesian spring water. I says, yeah, it's artesian spring water. I says, yeah. I don't know. It's pretty good. I says, he's like, if I want, I'd shake them artisans' hands if they have any. If they got any. Oh, that Rainier beer. The Budweiser commercials, the frog, the dog.
Budweiser.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Oh, goodness. Oh, so we went off a little bit of a tangent there, but we'll get back on track here. Hopefully,
we could keep going.
We probably could.
This is great.
We will.
We got squirrels and off the
Don't you
rails.
worry.
It's always good.
Yep. Meanwhile, I gotta make sure Tara's set up here. There we go.
This is what wild Cylons do.
That's it.
Yay.
Two
Looking
wild
for
and
squirrels
crazy
and going
Cylons.
off the rails.
Oh yeah, especially when you're looking at. All right, where the heck is that thing at?
Oh,
Give me a second. There it is.
that looks interesting.
Yep. All right, now I got to do that. Oop, I want that off. Slideshow settings 0. Okay, I think I'm ready now. So Tara, you have a bunch of movie and TV things to talk about tonight. So
I have a bunch of fun stuff.
So let's see if I put these in order. Otherwise, I might be bouncing back and forth, and and just tell me, no, wrong picture.
Oh, all right. I'll try to keep my eyes on you.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I don't have a big splash screen. Pete usually does all that stuff. I came in a little late because I went to the beer store. And
Listen, priorities.
I spent 3 digits worth of beer. It says that. So.
Excellent.
And that's not including a
All
decimal.
right. Well, are you ready for me to rock?
I am ready.
Tipsy?
Blammo.
All right. Here we go, guys. Well, hello, IFB. Happy Leap Day for all those who
Yeah,
celebrate
I
the
forgot about that.
weirdness. That is February 29th, right? So, perfect time to be here with you all. Welcome to Tiny Beans Corner, where we discuss new, old, but always interesting stuff for your potential viewing pleasure. Let's jump in, shall we? So, first up in previews, we've got a very interesting and unsettling new film with a trailer that just dropped yesterday. This one is called The Watchers, and though it is produced by M. Night Shyamalan, he did not direct this one. No, this is the directorial debut of his daughter, Ishama Shyamalan. And if she's anywhere near as good as her dad, we could be in for an auspicious start to her career. This one is based on a novel of the same name by A.M. Shine, and it tells the tale of mysterious creatures stalking an artist and other strangers in an Irish forest. Starring Dakota Fanning, the trailer alone is full of that signature Shyamalan creepiness. So check it out, guys. That film will hit theaters on June 7th. Next up, who are you going to call? That's right. The correct answer is always Ghostbusters. And the newest installment in the franchise is called Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And it looks like so much fun. The last spin in the Ghostbusters universe had us following the late Egon's daughter and grandchildren as they slowly get the band back together. Well, this one promises even more nostalgia, reuniting Aykroyd, Murray, and Hudson again, but also bringing back 2 more from the original film, Annie Potts, and possibly my favorite character actor of the 80s, William Atherton. Remember him? Always played the bad guy? Anyway, there will be Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. There will be Slimer. So here, just take all of my money. I can't wait. Get the kids, get the grandkids, get thee to the theaters, guys. This one opens March 22nd. It's going to be...
Ooh, that's pretty soon.
Right? It's like right around the corner. I can't wait.
Wow.
So, last up in previews tonight, guys. It's here. Dune 2 has finally
Baz is going crazy right
officially
now.
dropped.
Oh,
What? Yes, absolutely, guys. To say that the preview audience reviews have been good would be quite the understatement. It is already at 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, guys. It's being called a monumental
Oh,
achievement making.
here we go.
I cannot say that I'm surprised. Not unlike the first film, this one is packed with an amazing cast, adding Florence Pugh,
oh.
Austin Butler, and the legend himself, Christopher Walken, to the mix. I cannot wait to get to see this. Do yourself a favor, gang. Give part one a rewatch. It is streaming on Max and Netflix right now. So check that out and then head out to the big screen. I cannot wait to hear what the fleet thinks of this one. So, on to reviews, gang, and boy, do I have some good stuff for you tonight. If, like me, you are already missing True Detective Night Country, you are in luck. There is not one but two spectacular. Start binging right now. First, check out Constellation on Apple TV, a compelling space thriller starring Noomi Rapace, who I adore, Jonathan Banks, who you might remember from Breaking Bad, and James Darcy. So we're following an astronaut played by Rapace who gets stuck in space at the space station, and while waiting to be rescued, she sees things. She gets back and things don't seem to be quite right. Is this really her husband and daughter, for example? Why is the car a different color? Pieces of the mystery keep appearing and leave you really questioning what's going on. The storytelling is also not linear, so you have to stay on your toes. I'm full halfway through with the 8 episode series and hungry for more. If you like some quantum physics sprinkled into your sci-fi, a la Dark or Everything Everywhere All at Once, well, this one is for you. Noomi Rapace is fast becoming this generation's sci-fi go-to actress, and I am all for it. She is excellent here, as always. The rest of the cast is also top-notch. Give this one a go, guys. Definitely entertaining and worth the watch. And that one is on Apple TV. And final review for tonight. Holy cow, have you checked out Shogun? Or Shogun, as I believe is the proper pronunciation? Help me out, Rob Baum. Anywho, you need to watch this, guys. If epic is your preferred caliber style of filmmaking, this is a slam dunk. Don't just take my word for it. 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
9.3 in reviews on IMDb. This is
It's good.
like unheard of. This is the real deal, guys. Someone made the joke that nothing could be more epic than vast than Game of Thrones, and Japan said, "Here, hold my beer." So I emphatically agree. Based on the classic novel by James Clavell, I'm sure we all remember the 1980 version starring Richard Chamberlain. Now, imagine that story with 2024 green screen work, stunning cinematography, and an overall scale that is amped up to the extreme. The detail work on sets, costumes, etc., it's all meticulous. And the acting is exemplary. All of the lead characters, and especially the role of Yoshi Toranada, played to perfection by Hiroyuki Sanada. No stranger to American films, but he's got over 114 credits to his IMDb profile. This guy is amazing. If too many subtitles are a problem for you guys, here is a tip. You can go to the extras option on Hulu. When you open the film and you see the little extra thing, hit that. And you'll find, when you scroll down, the English dubbed versions. Now, yes, there will still be parts with subtitles when it's needed for the plot, but it may be a little bit easier to follow. So, anyway. There's also a podcast you can check out for more details, behind the scenes stories, and lots more. And it's called, you got to check this out. It's Shogun, the official podcast. Totally worth the listen. This one is going to go down as one of the great epic series of all time, gang, so do not miss it. Go and enjoy. Check it out. First 2 episodes are up now. I know you will like it. It's on FX and Hulu. Please let me know what you think. If I am this over the moon after 2 episodes, I cannot wait for more. So, that is all for the corner tonight. Back to you, Tipsy.
That Shogun's on Hulu, right?
Yes,
Hulu
which
and FX
is
channel.
Disney now. So you have to go to, if you have Disney, you have to go to Disney and then hit the Hulu button on there. But yes,
If
it
I
is
have
also
Disney,
on
do I have
FX.
Hulu now?
Yes.
So if I have
I
Disney
think
Plus, I have Hulu now?
you should have Hulu. So if you
Oh,
open up your
wow.
Disney app on your TV, and they give you, like, it'll say Star Wars, Disney, blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah, and there's a Hulu button, and you can go boop, Hulu, yay! So I'm sure the
Cool.
prices will go up soon. So enjoy
Yeah.
it while you can.
Oh, yeah.
That is one of the ones I haven't had. I went and bought Apple, and I've got, was it Paramount and Netflix and Amazon and
Well, it's like
Well, if
everything
you have
is
cable,
Stars
moving.
and
you have FX.
Yeah.
I don't have cable.
Yeah, right. If
You
you
also
have
have
regular
the-
cable, you'll
Oh,
have
no?
FX, so you're good.
Nope, I don't have any
Um,
cable.
And
Yeah, we went
I'm
online too.
Amazon just took over Paramount, so
Yep.
if you're in Amazon Prime, you
Cool.
can get Paramount Plus as your. Which,
Hopefully,
by the
I
way,
wonder if I'm still
Chris,
paying for that
I
now. Then
I know, yeah, it's like a full-time job just checking all of the
Yeah.
all those bills. But I just heard today, Chris, that Tulsa King season 2 probably not going to be till the very beginning of 2025.
Ah.
I know.
that is-
But I did hear that CBS is picking it up, so they're going to be showing the whole first season now on CBS because it was such a hit. So we can watch it again.
it's fantastic. That was,
Yeah.
that role was built for Sylvester Stallone. It was just, he's so good at it.
Absolutely.
I was like,
Oh,
wow,
yeah.
what a great.
Oh, yeah.
You don't even realize he's acting at that point. It's just like, isn't that how he really is? I
Yep.
think that's really him.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So,
Just doing his regular
Chris,
thing.
you're watching. You've been watching Shogun already?
No, I haven't had a chance to. I was getting ready to get Hulu because I didn't know I had Hulu. Because I believe isn't Godzilla on Hulu? Something
Apple
was
on
on.
Max.
The one that Chris
Monarch.
Chris, the one that Pete and I were watching
Monarch.
Monarch.
with Kurt Russell, Monarch.
Monarch,
That's on Apple.
Monarch, yeah.
Okay, that's on Apple. Okay, I have
Yeah.
that.
Oh, that was so
Gotta
good.
find that one. Too many things.
That
I
was
just
a lot of fun.
I just watched the finale of what was it? The one in Alaska.
True Detective.
True
Night
Detective.
Oh, True Detective.
That was
Country.
wow. What a great ending.
Right?
That was a
Yeah,
That
fantastic
was
ending.
so good. Yeah.
The ending was surprising. I was like, oh, okay. And the actress and
Yeah.
Jodie Foster was
yeah.
good too. She's like, yeah, I'm
Absolutely.
gonna walk out of here and that's it.
Yeah. All right. Have a good night.
Yep.
Oh, that
Okay.
was so good. Yeah, I'm so bummed that it's over. That's why I was so happy to discover Constellation and now to have Shogun on. I'm like, oh, good. All right. Now I have something to look forward
Shogun
to.
is
True
just
Detective
just
was
great.
like my whole week. It's so good, right?
It is very
I
good.
d- I
Even
didn't-
I
I
was
didn't
looking at the
expect it to be-
costumes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
It's unbelievable.
And
The
the acting is very good.
cinematography, the way they're setting up the shots, it has that very epic Game of Thrones feel. Yeah, really, really. I did not expect it to be that good, and it is really good.
They put a lot of big historical context in it too, between the English and the Portuguese and what was going on
Yeah.
at that time of the year, that time. So I was like, oh, okay.
Definitely so cool.
gonna
I'm
be
like,
good.
okay, 1600. So now I'm gonna jump down that rabbit hole and read all about that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It was
Story of
really
my
good show.
life. Yeah.
Sets and everything. I wonder if they shot that in Japan or not. I think they did, but I'm not that sure. They had to have. Had to be shot
I'm
over
sure
there.
they had to have done some of it. Got to keep
Yeah.
listening to the podcast because they're giving a lot of good detail. if you're into that sort of thing and you're in the car driving to work, check out the podcast. Very good.
Costume.
Japanese actors are just great.
They are incredible, right?
Toranaga.
Oh,
Beautiful.
he's just
Well
amazing. Yeah. I feel like, and I know I was just a kid when the original came out, but I felt like the original was all about Richard Chamberlain, and and he was amazing and he was great. But this one is, and I know that it's just started, and I know there's more to come. But this one is really very balanced, really nicely done, guys. And
it gave more depth to all the other characters instead of the original one. This one has all the characters,
Yeah.
and history, what they did, and okay, and it's really good. So you're starting to get more feel for the characters, what they were, than the original one.
yeah,
You have more of a sense of who
exactly.
Toranaga was. So
yeah,
really good,
yeah.
really good.
He is so good.
Guys, watch it if you can. You're gonna enjoy it.
I know. I'm like, okay, can I go watch it again before the next episode drops?
Mr. Pat, Professor Patton says there was a flop musical version of Shogun in the 1990s. I don't remember that one.
No, really. And I'm a musical theater
Oh.
girl, and I don't even know that one. That's amazing.
And Muir Model said he just started Foundation. I have not started Foundation. I'm going to have to check that out.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
What's that about? Is that Arthur C. Clarke?
Oh,
No, that's
on
Asimov.
Apple, right?
Asimov. Okay.
Yep. And it is Apple. Yeah. Apple is really they have become the channel for interesting sci-fi stuff that nobody else is doing. So. Yeah, check out this
coming out with
Constellation.
two more series.
Yeah. I know my-
Yes, right?
I know my favorite.
Definitely sci-fi fans in Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
right?
good.
I know my favorite series, Resident Alien, is getting ready.
Oh, yeah. And now Netflix just picked that up, and all of a sudden it's huge. And I know
Yep.
it was a hit when it was still on regular TV, but now it's it's all anybody's talking about.
And I think they show some of the comic. I've never seen any of the comic books, but they show pictures of the comic book stuff in the beginning of it. I'm like, I don't need to collect another comic book.
No,
I think Dark Horse did that.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to do digital or something. I got too much crap to get rid of right now with all this. You go from a large area to a small area. It's a lot of stuff you have to make a decision on. And I've got a lot of stuff to make a decision on.
Yeah.
So it looks like who else out there? Media Modeler just started Foundation. Definitely Mr. Bomer and Baz both say you have to rewatch Dune 1 before you go watch Dune 2.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And Baz is probably the number one Dune fan, because every time you say Dune on here, he's all over it.
Yeah.
He's in the process of
I'm
building
right
missiles
there
for
with
his
you,
Viper,
Baz.
by the way.
Yes.
I want to see those bats.
Mm-hmm.
Can you have
Those
those
are
in
the
Australia? You have to register those fake missiles.
Awesome.
I think it's ATF stamp tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Friends ask me, where am I living now? In an apartment.
It's a nice apartment. Very nice.
Woodbridge. Yeah, I'm in Woodbridge. So it went from
Cool.
Marine Corps base to Woodbridge. If you get rid of BSG, if you get rid of any BSG, I want it. No, Lola, no BSG is going to get rid of. It's probably the one thing I'll keep. I'm probably going to get rid of some Star Trek stuff that I've collected over the years that's not worth anything. Just
I've got dibs on stuff already.
it's just, I was packing. I have a box that's labeled Chris's giveaways and
Aw.
stuff to give away. Like I said, look, I might have some Battlestar Galactica stuff because look, I don't know why, but it's like you collect stuff and you're like, oh, that's a good deal, I'll get it, and then you end up, I don't know if you can see it, there. Yep, 3 Parker Brothers Battlestar Galactica board games. Why?
Oh.
I don't need 3 of them. I want to play one of them. Why do I need 3 of them?
It was a great
Donate one to
game.
Dragon Con auction.
I gotta say.
Yeah, that's probably what I'll end up with. A lot of stuff I'll send to the Dragon Con auction.
A bit of it.
What? Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you haven't been to Dragon Con, they have an auction every year that benefits the charity, whoever it may be that year. And they always have really good sci-fi stuff at the auction. Mostly it'll be Battlestar, a lot of Stargate, because the auction's in memory of I can't remember the actor's name, the one who played the Colonel in the show.
Oh yes,
That's
and he
his.
was
Yep.
Scully's father on
Yeah.
the X-Files. I can't think of his name.
Yeah. So it's a memorial auction every year, and
Nice.
he used to do it He used to do the auction, so they kind of memorialize him by doing that.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, he was in a lot of shows.
Yep.
Oh yeah, we hit a vast catalog of stuff. Yeah.
Cam Mitchell. Who was that?
I think that's it.
Okay,
Cameron.
that sounds right.
Let's see, Jack O'Neill.
Yes.
Well, that was a movie.
Colonel O'Neill was the no Colonel.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. No, it was the older guy, his boss. Maybe I misspoke. Anyway, somebody will remember. Don Davis, that's it.
Don
Robert Baum got
Davis,
it.
that's it. Yeah, I'm like, wait, it's
Thank you,
Don
Robert.
Davis. Twin Peaks, tons of stuff. But yeah, Scully's dad, because, me and the X-Files. So.
Yeah. All right. So we are up to the point where we have our great interview on tonight.
Oh, fantastic. All
So
right.
thank you so
I
much,
guess
Tiny Bean. Once again,
Yeah,
a fantastic
thank
review of what's going on, what's coming up, and some good suggestions. And now I have to go find Foundation. And actually, I need to find... Maybe I can't watch Foundation and unpack boxes at the same time, so I have to make a choice. So, Foundation it is. No unpacking boxes.
Foundation
All
it
right.
is. I will live with boxes.
I'll live with the boxes. I will put my drink on the box itself. Actually, I have a box right here, to my left, with a drink area on it. I am actually encased in boxes. I just wheeled out the cart a second ago, so
wow.
the dolly. But all right, so you stay warm up there, or cold, or
Thank
whatever.
you.
It depends on dry or whatever it is. It keeps changing up where you're at. So
That it
Cold.
does.
cold, hot,
All right,
60,
guys.
60s one day, 10 degrees the next.
7 the rest. Who knows? It's the magic of the Adirondack.
It's a gamble. Just roll the dice.
Yes. All right, guys. Well,
Yep.
you enjoy. I will be watching from the wings. Happy Leap Year Day, guys.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
see
so
you
weird.
soon.
Is this our very first
Yep.
leap year broadcast?
I probably
Yes.
because
I think it is.
Yeah.
It's our first broadcast on leap year.
on the 29th of February.
That's right. You have to make this a habit or something. The day that doesn't exist. What day? What day's your birthday?
I'd be like, I don't know, 4,
Or yeah.
5.
Right?
I'd be like 14 years old.
Five.
I'd be 14 years old again.
Yay.
So Mediocre Modeler says, "Have a great night, Tiny Bean." Lola says it's 80 degrees in Florida. We're headed down, Lola.
Amazing.
Oh.
All
All
right,
right.
guys. I'm
Yep.
going to sign off. I'll
Take
see you
care.
all soon. All right. Good
Bye.
night, everybody.
Okay, Tara. Have a good night.
You too.
Always great to have Tara on, and she's always got some great suggestions and reviews. And I haven't seen the show. Is the Shogun thing? She said that was on now.
Yeah, it's on now. First two episodes came out on Hulu and FX channel.
Yeah, that's right. I gotta find that one.
It was good.
First two.
Definitely good.
Is it like that? They, nowadays I love binge watching things because it's like, but I hate waiting for the next episode. I'm spoiled. I must have gotten really spoiled with. You can now watch the entire season. They drop it all at once. I'm like, yes, and you binge it and it's over. Whereas with like True Detective was like, okay, I gotta wait. Gotta wait for the next one. Gotta wait for another one. I hate waiting.
I just wait for the whole series that like a Masters of the Air. I wait now.
Yeah, maybe just wait for the series to get to land. So I won't watch any of it until they're all there. Then I can go watch the whole thing in one shot.
It's so hard to do sometimes. You're like, I'm not gonna do it, and then you watch everything. So I'm like, oh, I can't wait till next week. I gotta watch it again.
Gotta watch it again next week. I don't have to wait till next week. Click. It's on now.
Boom. And then you gotta wait a whole week for season 2 to come on, episode 2.
Yep. So,
right.
John, you want to introduce? So tonight we have a great interview, and you want to kind of give a review of who we're interviewing tonight.
That's right, but this is Steve Vertlieb. He's a 2016 Rondo Award winner for horror. He writes with such a passion about movies, TVs, going into the 50s. He's really a very good writer, and we're happy to have him. He's done stories on Nosferatu, King Kong, Hitchcock. Very, very interesting writing. If you see his writings or his reports, he's a man that saved the movies, and we're going to find out how. Everyone, welcome Mr. Vertlieb. Welcome to our show.
Yep, hang on. I'm trying to adjust you, John. I screwed up.
Oh no.
1 second. Hang on. John's all messed up. It's not John's fault. It's my fault.
Good.
Hang on. It's the cropping.
Oh. You gotta squeeze me in.
There we go. Now you're squeezed in. Now we got it right.
All right.
Yay!
Me?
Yes, sir. We can.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for that very, very gracious introduction. None of it's true, but I hate.
We screwed it up.
Oh.
I'm very informal. I'm just a common, ordinary schmuck who loves movies and science fiction, fantasy, and horror. And please call me Steve.
Hello, Steve. Welcome to IFB. Thanks for coming on to us, talking to us for a while.
Thank you. I've been called many things in my life, but Steve is my preferred name.
Great. So we just want to tell us a little about yourself. How did you get to writing and doing what you do?
Yeah,
for the last
you describe yourself as a
50-some
movie
odd years.
journalist.
Yeah.
This is something we've never had before.
Well, I'm 78 years old. I've been into this stuff since I was 4, when my dad brought home our first television, an old RCA TV in 1950. And in those days, television really didn't come alive until 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon or evening. And you would have an Indian head penny
Oh yeah.
on the screen. And I used to sit, I used to sit entranced in front of the TV watching that until suddenly everything would come alive at 5 or 6 in the evening. And from that point on, I was hooked. I was a lonely, isolated kid, I guess, overly sensitive, which I still am. And I got hooked into Flash Gordon serials and Zorro's Fighting Legion with Reed Hadley. And when I used to go to the movies, long before the advent of videotape or DVDs or Blu-ray, I wanted to somehow save the movie in my memory. And so I had a journal, and I'd come back from the Saturday matinee at the old Benner Theater here in Philadelphia and write down the story. In 1965, I was invited by Fari Ackerman to the very first famous Monsters of Filmland convention, which was held in September of that year at Lowe's Midtown Manhattan Motor Inn. And I met
Oh my
Fari
gosh.
and many of the people that I've been friends with for over half a century, including my dear friend Alan Asherman, who you may be aware of, who passed away just a few months ago. But I started writing about movies for L'Incroyable Cinema magazine in England in 1969, and that progressed to Cinema Cobb here in the States. My first paying job was for the Monster Times. I was one of the very first writers for the Monster Times, which was a bi-weekly monster tabloid that came in January 1972. And Alan Ashterman and I were among the very first writers. In fact, I wrote the lead cover story for the first issue on the making of King Kong. And then I was approached by Harry Gettold and Ron Gottesman of Indiana University and Rutgers, who were doing a book on King Kong, which was to be the very first book ever published about the film. And that was The Girl in the Hairy Paw. We started working on that in 73. Unfortunately, Prentice Hall, the original publisher, was taken over by another company. They lost interest in the project, and so it didn't get published until 1976. The Making of King Kong by George Turner and Orville Goldner beat us by a few months, I believe, but we were actually the first, and I took my article for the Monster Times and rewrote it, and it became the first chapter in The Girl in the Hairy Paw. And I'm still a lifelong movie nut. That's my major passion in life, always has been. I think, I know I'm talking too much, but I just wanted to say
No. Yeah.
We've got
the
lots of
major,
questions.
the major passion of my life, I guess maybe the major success of my life, is that I was fortunate enough to either meet or befriend most of my lifelong heroes. And they were wonderful friends. I adore them. I miss them. I knew Ray Harryhausen for about 50 years as a dear friend. The same with Ray Bradbury for about 40 years. But I've been writing, I guess, about 55 years and getting published. And I won the Rondo Hall of Fame Life Achievement Award in 2016. And I'm up presently for Best Article of the Year for a piece I did on The Black Cat from 1934 with Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. So I'll shut up and let you guys talk.
Yes, I was reading an article that you wrote about The Black Cat. It was very fascinating. It's, I think when that movie was made, it was very. I think the shocking content of what Karloff was doing was little, maybe out of sorts for American theater goers back then, but it was a very good story.
It was during the advent of the motion picture production code, or actually it was just before the production code went into effect later on that year in 1934. So it was rather daring, shocking, sensual. Yes. Karloff was basically having an affair with his own daughter.
Wow!
And at the end of the film, he's being flayed alive by Bela Lugosi. So it was rather shocking and adult for its time. After the production code went into effect, films were largely toned down, rather, and sexual content went out the window until the 50s when it was revoked.
Yep, those German directors were ahead of their time. Murnau, Lang, and this director, I forgot his name that directed it, was I think this was his only famous movie he did, right?
He did some other films. He did a noir film. It was, I can't recall the title, either in the late 40s or early 50s. I think it was called Detour. Edgar Ulmer. But he directed that one noir film, but most critics agree that his shining moment was in The Black Cat for Universal in '34.
Yep. And I think Universal is bringing back a lot of the old famous monsters again. I mean, Universal Theaters has a whole big area. There's a lot of literature now, comics, books, and all the famous monsters. So it's timeless. Dracula, Wolfman, the Mummy, um,
Yeah, those
the
creatures
flattery.
are timeless. They'll
Yeah,
never go away.
yep.
I'm
And
more of a
flattery is always.
purist.
Yeah. So yeah,
I was
so
just saying I'm more of a
Nosferatu.
yeah. And I wrote an article on the history of Nosferatu. I don't know if you've had a chance to peruse that, but it starts
Yes.
with the original German UFA film in '22 and goes through to the last of the Demeter, which came out last year.
There's also a remake of Nosferatu that's coming out, I think, in the next year or so. And
I've
they
heard
had one last
that.
one with, yeah, they're filming it. I think Johnny Depp's daughter's going to be in it, but they haven't got a release date yet. And I
Huh.
saw the one with William Dafoe who played it. They were filming the
Yes.
making of Nosferatu. That was very good as
Yeah.
well. I mean,
I don't know if you
if you
guys are
were to,
into music for films, but
Oh yeah.
Christopher,
yep.
I'm I'm a member of the International Film Music Critics Association, and we just had our annual best of last week. And Chris Young won Composer of the Year and also Best Horror Film Score, and he won an award for Nosferatu. He has just written a new score for the original silent film, and there's a Kickstarter
Oh,
program starting in March to raise money for a 2 CD recording of his music for that film. And I'll happily contribute. He's a wonderful, wonderful
oh
composer.
wow,
That's my other
interesting.
passion, I guess. Film music. I've written reams of articles about movie music and Miklos Rozsa and Bernard Herrmann, John Williams, of course. I've been lucky enough to meet John Williams 5 times. I've got pictures of John and
Wow.
I all over my apartment. And I knew Miklos Rozsa personally for almost 30 years. And I never met Bernard Herrmann, but I
Hmm.
know his daughter Dorothy, and I was lucky enough to present him with a posthumous Lifetime Achievement Award in Arlington, Virginia, at one of Fari Ackerman's, no, I'm sorry, one of Gary and Sue Fela's conventions, Monster Rally, I believe, in 2000. And both Pat Hitchcock and Dorothy Herrmann were there. I sat next to Pat Hitchcock for a solid
Cool.
hour on a panel discussing her father's work.
Hmm.
And later that evening, I introduced Dorothy Herrmann and gave her a Life Achievement Award for her dad. But Herrmann was certainly one of the great composers, as was Miklos Rozsa.
Herman did a lot of work with the Hitchcock movies, Kirk, if I'm not mistaken. Is that true? Or
He did, yeah, in the '50s and '60s, most notably Vertigo, North by
Vertigo?
Northwest, The Man Who Knew Too Much, and obviously Psycho.
Hmm.
Um,
Psycho was a good movie. Vertigo I like
Psycho,
too with Kim Novak and Jimmy Stewart. It was an excellent movie.
yeah,
So
Yep.
I think that's probably Hitchcock's masterpiece.
yes,
Um,
I would say that too.
I mean,
Very nice. Was it?
I can talk forever about this stuff. I don't want to come
Oh,
off
Oh no no.
as a know-it-all.
no,
It's just
please.
my lifelong passion.
No.
It's great to meet someone who has as much experience in this as you do. We kind of
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say a cute story. In 1990, Gary and Sue Fela had one of their Balticon conventions, or Midnight Marquee, rather. I'm getting old, my memory is not what it was, but they had one of their Midnight Marquee conventions in Baltimore, and they invited Ray Harryhausen, and it was his first ever East Coast convention.
Oh wow.
And I had known Ray
Oh,
Harryhausen since 1996. He was introduced to me by Marion C. Cooper, the man who made the original King Kong. And so they asked me to host the event. And they had I think about 700 fans in this huge ballroom in 1990. And I shared the stage with Ray. We ran clips from his films, talked about his career. And Ray was a big film music nut. His favorite composer was Max Steiner, who, of course, wrote the music for King Kong. And I took advantage of that, being another film music nut. And we started talking about Roja, who wrote the score for Golden Voyage of Sinbad, and also Bernard Herrmann, who wrote the music for The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, Mysterious Island, Three Worlds of Gulliver. Anyway, long story short, at the end of the 2.5 hour interview, I helped Ray pack up his models. I was tempted to stick them in my shirt and run out the door. But,
I was
Ray,
going to ask you about that. How did you like handling them? They must have been like his babies.
They were precious. Yeah, they were very precious and very fragile. And Ray asked me if I would help him pack them, and I was afraid of dropping one of them.
Oh.
But Ray, we walked down to the room. Ray walked off to the left to talk to the fans who had been waiting for him. And I walked out with my then wife, Maria. We walked to the right. And there was a man there who greeted us with a woman and a small boy. Excuse me. And the gentleman approached me and said, "Are you the fellow who was on stage with Ray Harryhausen?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "You were talking about film music and Bernard Herrmann." I said, "Yes." And he pointed to his wife and child and said, "I'd like you to meet Bernard Herrmann's daughter and grandson." And I clutched my heart and went, "Whoa." So I said, "Follow me."
Oh.
So we walked over to Ray. I tapped Ray on the shoulder. And I said, "Ray, I'd like you to meet Bernard Herrmann's daughter and grandson." And he had the same reaction. He gasped. And it was a wonderful moment, one that I'll never forget.
Wow.
Go ahead. You guys talk.
You're good. So in preparation this week, we kind of threw out a question to our fans in regards to some scores for movies. So we asked our fans what was the best sci-fi movie score, and we got quite a few back. So curious what your opinion of the best sci-fi movie score is, and we'll share some of the answers from our people.
That's tough. I can think of dozens, but titles that come immediately to mind would be Things to Come, the 1936 British film with Raymond Massey and a score by Sir Arthur Bliss. Wonderful score, performed in concert for decades. As far as Bernard Herrmann, I'd say The Earth Stood Still, Journey to the Center of the Earth, Mysterious Island, and the most obvious gentleman would be John Williams, who we just saw again. I saw John in concert for the 18th time last week at the Kimmel Center in Philadelphia. They had third row orchestra seats. It was glorious. And I'll be seeing for the 19th time at the Hollywood Bowl next July. But anyway, I'd say of John's scores, E.T. is my favorite, followed by Close Encounters of the Third Kind and of course Star Wars.
I forgot all about that one.
Yep, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Those would be the ones that come most immediately to mind. What did your group come up with?
So our audience, a lot of people thought that Star Wars and Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back were one of the better ones that's kind of voted on. A couple of them were the older, the original Blade Runner. Blade Runner, and it looks like mine's kind of one of my favorites is kind of newer. I like Bear McCreary's music. He's more now. He's a little bit more modern. but he's got some interesting mixes with different voices and accents, and it's really interesting.
I confess that because of my age and the period in which I grew up with the classic film music. When music in films were melodic,
Hmm.
and I go back to Ernest Wolfgang, Korngold, Franz Waxman with The Bride of Frankenstein, Max Steiner certainly with the original King Kong, Roja, Lost Weekend, Spellbound, and Bernard Herrmann with all of the Hitchcock films and
Hitchcock.
uh,
David Lean,
Citizen Kane,
definitely. David
with
Lean had a
David
good
Lean.
soundtrack.
Yeah, he had
Very good
Maurice
soundtracks.
Jarre with Lawrence of Arabia, of course.
Ooh,
Uh,
that's one that's I love
Yep.
that one's nice.
The-
Cinematic. What word am I looking for? The cinematic.
I think
The the strings in that one.
Oh,
Yeah.
Korngold, of course, wrote all of the original swashbuckling films from the 1930s, The Adventures of Robin Hood and the Seahawk,
Oh wow.
Captain Blood.
Captain
That was
Blood.
Captain
good.
Blood.
Yep.
Captain Blood. Great movies.
Roja wrote what arguably might be the best film score of all time, the music for Ben-Hur, the MGM 1959 version
Oh,
with Charlton Heston, which won an Academy Award.
that. Yeah. Very. The music does go with you. When you watch a movie and you really don't think about the music till you feel it. You know, the music makes you very emotional. A lot of scenes, like when they found out his sisters were in the what was it, the Leprechaun. You know, you really feel that music, and
Yeah,
it goes a
yeah,
lot.
and
It must.
the Christ theme is very moving. I think of another very moving piece of music by Alfred Newman, another one of the great classic composers, who wrote the scores for The Robe. And I'm thinking back to
Quo
the
Vadis.
40s of that was Roja. Alfred Newman wrote Song of Bernadette, The Razor's Edge. Korngold wrote a beautiful score for a fantasy film called Between Two Worlds, which was a remake of,
Oh,
I can't think of the title, a film from the early 30s with Leslie Howard, Outward Bound, which was based upon a play. But it was remade by Warner Brothers in 1944, I believe, with Eleanor Parker, Paul Henreid, John Garfield, and it had an exquisite score by Korngold. I'll tell you a funny story about Eleanor Parker, and tell me to shut up at any time.
Oh no, please stop.
I know I
No,
go
no,
on
please.
and on. With the only time I've ever been on a press junket covering the making of the film was in 1980. They flew some of us down to Jackson, Mississippi to cover the making of a horror film directed by the Australian director Philippe Mora, and it was called The Beast Within. And it starred a young actor named Paul Clemens. And we had dinner with the cast and crew every night in Jackson. And I became fast friends with Paul. And it turned out we had a great deal in common. And Paul is a big film music nut as well. So one night he said, walk me back to my room. And we were all staying at the same motel. And we walked into his room and Paul said, give me a minute, I got to call my mom. So I stood there with my hands in my pockets and Paul dialed her number and I heard him talking to his mother. And he was saying, yeah, Mom, I think I did okay on the set today. We did this. I don't think I screwed up, and on and on. Then he hung up the phone and turned to me and said, I call my mom every night to tell her how I did on set. She's in the business. And I said, your mom? Who's your mom? And he said, Eleanor Parker. who, of course, was the
Wow.
Baroness in The Sound of Music, in Between Two Worlds, starred in Scaramouche with Stuart Granger. And Paul and I are still dear friends. And every summer when I visit LA, we have a marathon lunch at a Jewish deli and just talk and laugh for about 4 or 5 hours.
Paul Williams, the composer, right? The music composer. He was in
Sorry, say
not the
again?
Paul Williams that was in uh
No, this is
Planet of the
Paul
Apes.
Clemens.
Oh, Paul
Clemens.
This is
Clemens. All right,
Paul
I think you said
Clemens.
Paul Williams. I'm sorry. All right, now I
He was
understand.
on an episode. He was nominated for an Emmy on an episode of Quincy with Jack Klugman, which leads to another story. I used to run the film department at WTAF TV in Philadelphia, Channel 29. I worked there for about 12 years, and we dealt with a lot of Universal product. So every year when I visit my brother in LA, I'd visit Dan Silverman, who was the head of publicity for Universal in those days. And Dan would invite us every year, my brother and I, and we'd walk all over the Universal lot. But one year he said, "Would you like to go on the set of Quincy with Jack Klugman?"
Ooh.
So I said, "Of course, I love Jack Klugman." So he said, "Just beware. He can be a little iffy. He's not a prima donna, but he's a perfectionist. So watch your P's and Q's." So we went on to the set. Now I knew in advance that Jack Klugman was from Philadelphia, and he also adored Philly. He always talked about growing up in Philadelphia when he was on talk shows. So we went on the set. I met him, and the first thing out of my mouth was, "Mr. Klugman, we're from Philadelphia." So we chatted for a while, and he said, "Would you boys like to come back after lunch and watch a shoot?" So I said, "Certainly." So I watched him walk over to the director, and he pointed at me, and he said, "These boys are going to come back after lunch and watch a shoot. They're from Philadelphia, you know, Philadelphia." So that got a big laugh, and he was a sweetheart. He was really a sweet guy and a wonderful actor.
Was
Who-
good, Quincy. I like
yeah.
that one.
So we have a lot of everybody's like a lot of people agree with you in regards to the Ben-Hur being the best score. Looks like somebody loves the Parade of the Charioteers. Was the part of the score? Let's see what else.
At the end.
Yep, Ben-Hur. Yep.
Love theme.
Eric Padden. Ben-Hur is the best. Superman would have picked Star Wars. Standard for me.
I forgot to mention Superman is one of John Williams' best.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the
was very
story about Roja. Roja is my favorite composer, followed by Bernard Herrmann, Alfred Newman, John Williams, and Dmitri Tiomkin. I knew Roja, as I said, for about 27 years. When I was working at the TV station as the manager of the film department, I knew Harry Gettle, who was the co-author I mentioned earlier of The Girl in the Hairy Paw, and he was a writer. He was also the head of film and comparative literature at the main campus of Indiana University in Bloomington. Well, back around 1978, 1979, I received a phone call from Harry while I was working at the TV station, and he said he and his wife Caroline would like me to come and stay with them that weekend. They were having a film conference.
Wow.
And I said, "Well, I'm up to my eyeballs in work. I can't get away. Who's going to be there?" And he said, "Well, Molly Haskell, the esteemed New York film critic, will be there." And I said, "Well, I'd like to meet Molly, but I can't get away. I'm just too busy." I said, "Who else is going to be there?" He said, "George Powell is coming." And I thought, my God, George Powell, War of the Worlds, When Worlds Collide, The Time Machine. I'd love to meet George Powell, but I just don't see how I can get away. Then I said, is anyone else going to be there? And he said, Miklos Rozsa is coming. And I said, let me call the airport and I'll get right back to you. So that was a deal breaker. So I went and stayed with Harry and Caroline, and I spent 11 hours glued to Rozsa's side. We became fast friends. We were talking about everything imaginable. Uh, when the Rozsa Society had just begun, and they were based in Bloomington, and they were having a special luncheon for Rozsa and some of the members of the society. So I was a gentleman. I was not a member of the society at that point, and I wanted to be courteous and not pushy. So I kind of went to the side and let them bring Rozsa into the cafeteria. The doors closed, and about 30 seconds later, the doors opened again, and John Fitzpatrick, who was and still is the president of the Rozsa Society, raced toward me, and I got scared. I said, "What's wrong? Is Dr. Rozsa okay?" And he said, "Yes." We sat down, and Rozsa looked up and said, "Where's Steve?" So I damn near had a heart attack and was ushered back into the room to sit next to Rozsa. And the final day of the conference, when we were leaving, Rozsa was getting ready to go to the airport. He had on his hat and his winter coat, and he took my hands in his, and he looked at me with his steely eyes, and in his deep Hungarian accent said, "I feel you are very sincere." And I damn near cried. That was very moving. It's a memory that I'll keep forever. And then I was fortunate enough to be heading back to the airport at the same time as George Powell. And if you can picture an hour-long limousine ride from Indiana University to Indianapolis Airport, just George Powell and I together for a solid hour talking about Time Machine and War of the Worlds. And Rozsa had written the score for The Power. And we were talking about that. He donated the original score to the Rozsa Society. But he was a lovely man. And that leads me into Robert Bloch. Robert Bloch has always been one of my favorite writers. Of course, he wrote Psycho, wrote reams of short stories and novels from the 30s on until his passing in 1995, I think. Bob and I were very close friends for 25 years. The very first day that I ever went to Los Angeles, when my brother invited me, was the summer of 1974. Bob invited us to, he proclaimed himself our chauffeur for the day. And Robert Bloch took us in his limousine, his car, all over Los Angeles, showing us the sights. He took us to Fari Ackerman's Acker Mansion. We went to Paramount to visit George Powell. Bob was writing the teleplay for a miniseries that he was developing for George Powell for CBS. It was an adaptation of H.G. Wells' In the Days of the Comet. And again, Bob was writing the teleplay for the miniseries. Unfortunately, yet again, there was a change in management at CBS, and it never happened. But we did spend a lovely hour or so with George at his office at Paramount. And later that evening, we went to Bob's house. And to show you what a gentleman Bob was, he had a copy of, I think it was Cinema Macabre, with one of my articles, and he had it sitting prominently on his desk in his office. And I'm fairly certain that he did that for my benefit because he was such a sweet guy. But I loved him. I love his work. I love his novels and short stories. And I've written 2 articles about Bloch. One came out in a book about 10 years ago called Robert Bloch, the man who invented psychos. And I wrote the lead chapter for that. It came out in Australia. So I wrote that article, which I've recently republished with File 770. They're a Hugo Award-winning website, and I've written tons of stuff for them the last half dozen years or so. Um, but I adored Bob, and I remember sitting at his dinner table that evening with his wife, Ellie. They're both gone now, sadly. But I asked Ellie, and I think I've read everything Bob ever wrote, but I asked Ellie, what's your favorite story by your husband? And she said, I've never read a word that he's written.
Oh
And I
wow.
was shocked. I said,
Hmm.
why? And she said, because the Bob I know is a sweet, loving, gentle soul, and I prefer not to see another side of him. So that was very
Oh, like
interesting.
Journey to
But
Midnight
Bob
or
was,
Asylum.
yeah, yeah, but Bob
Yeah,
was a hell
a
of
lot
a
of his
nice
short
guy.
stories.
Right.
It's,
Question for you.
Yeah,
Since we're a Battlestar Galactica oriented group, did you ever have a chance to meet Stu Phillips?
I did not. I
Oh,
did
okay.
not. I would like to have. I've met a lot of people in
Yeah,
my
I mean,
life.
the next question was, have you thought about writing a book or like a memoirs or something like that? I mean, you have
My brother,
um, such a
no, go ahead.
mass amount of experience and stories.
oh yeah.
It would be, I think it would be fantastic to be able to put those down so people have them to remember it.
And you know what? When I'm talking to like-minded friends, I talk my head off. But in my private life, I'm very shy and introverted, have a very low opinion of my self-worth. And when people say things like that, I go, oh, shucks, golly, gee whiz.
Oh,
It's been suggested before. I honestly don't know who would give a damn except my brother and a few friends. But I've had some incredible
Well,
experiences
yes.
in my life. I
yeah.
mean, I've interview. I was one. I think I was the first guy to interview William Shatner for a fanzine
Oh wow.
uh, back
No
Wow.
back
way.
in back in 1969 when Star Trek was still on NBC in rerun, and I was writing for L'Incroyable Cinema in England. And I told them, or rather, they asked me if I would do an interview. He was appearing locally at a venue that's no longer here, the Playhouse in the Park, and he was starring with Jill Hayworth in There's a Girl in My Suit. And so I
Oh,
arranged to go to his dressing room and interview him for the magazine. And I think he was a little put off by us in the beginning, but toward the end, he was very warm and genuine. And I spent a solid hour, my brother and Alan Asherman, interviewing Shatner. I came up with the questions and did most of the asking of the questions. And at the end of the interview, he said, "Would you guys like to come and see the performance?" And we said, "Of course." I had nowhere to go. So we saw the play, and at the end of the play, when he and Jill Hayworth were leaving the stage, he turned toward my brother Alan and I and waved, which was very sweet. And then it was published in the magazine in England and later republished by the Monster Times in their second Star Trek issue. And Alan later republished the interview in his book, The Star Trek Compendium. Um, I was a little upset. I adored Alan. We were dear, dear friends. But when it was published by the Monster Times, he told me that people knew him, which they did. He was well known by that time to Star Trek fans, and it would sell more if he took the lead credit for the interview. And so it read, uh, the interview read by Alan Asherman with Steve Vertlieb and Erwin Vertlieb. When if you check
oh,
back to the original published interview in England by Lancre de Cinema, it said by Steve Vertlieb with Alan Asherman and Erwin Vertlieb. And I guess I understood at the time that his name was more marketable than mine, but I felt a little hurt by that. But
Yeah.
we remained friends
Yeah.
until his passing, and I mourn his loss. He was a wonderful writer and certainly well known in the Star Trek community. But I knew
Wow.
Buster Crabbe extremely well. Um, but I grew up with Buster
Buster
as
Crabbe.
Flash Gordon and Buck
That's
Rogers,
good.
and that leads into
So
another
Commander.
funny story.
Oh,
I have
please.
lots
Commander
of.
Cody.
I used to visit my buddies George Stover and Bruce Gerhardt in Baltimore and spend many weekends there, even when I was living at home with my folks before I got my first apartment. And on one of those occasions, I came back from Baltimore on a Sunday night, and I asked my dad, "Did anybody telephone for me?" And he said, "Yes, Buster Crabbe called." And I said, "No, really, did anybody call for me?" He said, "No, I'm really, Buster Crabbe called asking for you." It took him for about a half an hour to convince me that Buster Crabbe had really called. The story was that Buster was at a convention in Philadelphia, which I didn't know about because I was out of town. And Buster was looking for me and asking people at the convention if they knew Steve Vertlieb. He came up empty, which didn't surprise me in the slightest, because nobody really knows who the hell I am, and I can't say that I blame them. But at any rate, he finally actually found a telephone directory in his room at the Holiday Inn and found a gentleman named Charles Vertlieb, called him on the phone and said, "Do you know Steve Vertlieb?" And he said, "Well, I hope so. He's my son." So Buster said, "Have Steve call me." So I called him the next morning and we chatted, and he said, "Would you like to join me for dinner in Chinatown after the
Whoa.
convention ends that night?"
Wow.
So I did,
That must have been
and
some dinner.
it was exciting.
Wow.
He was like a Jewish mother. We were eating Chinese food. He couldn't finish his, and he started dumping his food into my plate and saying, "Here, eat, eat, eat." Um, but this was in 1979. The first time I met Buster was in 1969. Alan Asherman had interviewed him for a magazine and said, would you and your brother Erwin like to join me up at the Concord Hotel and spend a day with Buster?" Buster
Wow.
was the swim director at the Concord in the mid to late 60s in conjunction with his Buster Crabbe swimming pools. So it took forever and a day to get up to the Concord in the Catskills by bus and train and more trains. But we spent the afternoon with Buster, and he told us wonderful stories about Charles Middleton as Ming the Merciless and
Oh,
Gene.
Oh, wow.
He told us a wonderful story about Priscilla Lawson, who played Queen Azura
Tourist. Yeah.
in the serials. Unfortunately, she had a traffic accident while crossing the street and was hit by a car and lost a leg. Buster had remained friends with Gene Rogers all those years, who played Dale Arden, of course. He also told us a very funny story about Captain Gallant of the Foreign Legion, which he starred in on television in the mid 50s. He starred with his own son, Cuffy Cullen Crabbe, and he said he hated camels. After working on Captain Gallant in Morocco, he said that camels were the nastiest animals on the planet. If you
Yep.
got in front of it, they would spit at you.
Yep.
Oh, you spit on him.
But
Wow.
Buster invited me to come in and spend some time with him at his home in I believe Scottsdale, Arizona. Unfortunately, I never had a chance to do that, but
Oh,
he was a great guy, and it was a thrill to befriend one of my childhood heroes. Another boyhood hero, and you guys might be too young for this, but in the 1950s, there on ABC television, there was a popular show called Space Patrol.
Yes.
Uh, it was on ABC radio at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then would air on ABC television
Oh,
at 10:30. And Edward Kemmer starred as Buzz Corey. Lynn Osborne was Cadet Happy, and I always loved Buzz Corey, along with Flash Gordon and Hopalong Cassidy, Bill Boyd. I loved watching Space Patrol and Commander Buzz Corey. I always wanted to meet Ed Kemmer. He never did appearances, and so it looked like it would never happen. All of a
wow.
sudden, he started. I was told by friends in Baltimore that he was starting to do the convention circuit. He also starred in Earth versus the Giant Spider, an awful Burt I. Gordon film that was on Svengoolie
Oh,
Yeah.
last week.
Do
But
you watch Svengoolie?
I do on occasion.
Yeah.
Generally, my girlfriend, Jenny, and I are out on Saturdays seeing a movie and then having dinner. But I like Svengoolie. I hate the commercials, but I think he's very clever and creative and quite funny. But I finally found out that Ed was going to be at a convention in Baltimore, and I was thrilled. I couldn't wait to meet him. I finally got to meet him, and I said, Mr. Kemmer, I have loved you for 50 years. And he looked at me and he said, You couldn't possibly be that old. And I said, I assure you that I am. So Ed and I became good friends for the last few years of his life. It turned out he was a big Sinatra fan, and Sinatra is my idol. I met Sinatra once, uh, have letters and autographs from Frank, and even an autograph record from him. I've got pictures or autographed letters from Frank all over the place. But long story short, Ed was a big fan, and he knew the fellow who directed the Buzz Corey Space Patrol series went on to direct the Rosemary Clooney show, and Nelson Riddle was the orchestra conductor for that. So he got to meet Nelson Riddle and Rosie Clooney. So for the last few years of Ed's life, I would make him 90-minute cassette tapes of music by Sinatra and send them to his apartment
Oh,
in New York City, which he really appreciated. And I've got letters from Ed telling me how much he enjoyed the tapes the recordings that I made for him. And leading into another story, I met Sinatra backstage in his dressing room at the old Latin Casino in Cherry Hill, New Jersey in 1976. And I couldn't, it was one of the most exciting nights of my life. We were only together for about a minute. I was able to get backstage into his dressing room, and he put his arm around me and took a picture.
oh
And I
wow.
cried like a little girl when we were leaving. I turned around and said, I love you, Frank. But I quite
Frankie.
recently, I think the longest article that I've ever written in my life, it's about 30 pages. It's called Sinatra All the Way. It was published by my friends at File 770. Mike Lyer was published a few months ago, and it took me about 3 or 4 months to write it, and about 6 hours to
Oh,
research stills and rare foreign posters to include in the article. But I'm very proud of it. My brother told me it took him about 4 hours to read it. It's that long, but
wow.
I think it
I'd have
might be
to
the finest work of my life.
I'd have to agree with Kim. I would definitely read your memoir. I mean, you have all these legends you've met. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's filled with a lot of memories, and you really met a lot of
Well, I
legends.
tell you, I've
But
had over the past 14 years, my health has not been terrific. I've had two major open heart surgeries, two serious seizures, and last month I had a mini stroke. I'm 78. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here, but in moments of loneliness and sadness or depression that many of us suffer, when I think back to the heroes that I've been lucky enough to interact with, meet, know, and befriend and become good friends with, like Bradbury and Harryhausen and Bob Bloch, um, it lifts my spirits.
Yeah.
The last time I saw Bradbury, whenever I'd go out to LA, his daughter would tell him that I'm coming, and he, from what she tells me, he got all excited, and so I look forward to those meetings. He had suffered several serious strokes toward the end of his life, and his speech was garbled. I know he was frustrated about that. But the last time I was with him, I kissed him on the cheek. I held his hand, and I said, "Ray, you are beloved by millions of people all over the world." And I could see a tear coming out down his cheek. When we left, my brother and I, before we got into his car, I turned around, I looked at the house, and I said to my brother Erwin, "I think this is the last time we're going to see Ray." And it turned out that that was true.
Mm.
Um, that I miss him, that I cherish his friendship, and uh, Harryhausen. When Ray died, Ray Harryhausen, I mean, it wasn't unexpected, but I was broken up by it. I got an invitation to his private funeral service. It was, each invitation was numbered, and I was admonished not to divulge that or share it with anyone until after the ceremony. I would love to have gone. It was just right after I had come back from a trip to LA. I was maxed out on my credit cards, and the last thing I could afford was a trip to London. But I still have that numbered invitation to his private funeral, and just cherish his memory and our friendship.
Wow. Wow. I have two quick questions. Did you ever
Yeah,
meet Sid Mark? He was a mainstay in Philly, hosted a Sinatra show. And did you meet
yeah, I
anyone
knew
from the Bond
Sid.
films? Sid Mark. How was he?
Yeah, I did know Sid. He was a good guy. He was heavily into jazz, not only Sinatra but Tony Bennett and Nancy
Tony Bennett.
Wilson. And I went to a show not too many years ago. It turned out that it was Sid's last public appearance. I knew Sid from 1960 when he was doing the Mark of Jazz on WHAT and then later WWDB here in Philly. And Sid hosted a show with Bobby Rydell as the main
Remember that?
attraction, and the opening act was Tom Dreesen. Now, Tom Dreesen had was a well-known comedian who had been on the Tonight Show numerous times, and was the opening act for Frank Sinatra for the last 14 years that Sinatra was on the road. So Sid hosted the show. He was on stage for about 10 minutes and then left. I saw the show with Bobby and with Tom Dreesen. After the show, we went back and met Bobby. And Bobby and I had a mutual friend, Tommy DeNoble. I worked with Tommy at the TV station, and we were like brothers. And Bobby said, "Is Tommy still with us?" And I shook my head and said no. Um, but we also met Tom Dreesen. And the reason I mentioned Tom is that Tom became a Facebook friend and seemed to like my articles, particularly the one about Sinatra. So I messaged Tom last spring and said, "I'm coming to LA in July. Would you like to get together?" And he said, "Well, I'm on the road a lot. I'm still doing one-nighters, but let me know when you get in town." So I called him, and he said, this was actually he emailed me on the last night that I was in Los Angeles and said, "I have a window. Would you like to get together?" So I said, "Of course." So it was supposed to be 15 minutes. It turned into a 2.5 hour dinner and conversation. And Tom is a great guy. I thought he was younger than me. He's older than me. He's 84 years old, but he's in great shape. We kissed and hugged, and I hope to see him again next summer. He wrote a book about his relationship with Sinatra, both personal and professional. I should ask you, how clean is this show? I don't want to say anything
We're all adults.
people might not offend.
We don't have any kids watching. Not
Yeah.
normally. We're
All right.
we're a little. Our audience is a little older than that.
Yeah.
Story Tom told me. And I really had a heart attack laughing. Tom told us about the nights that he played cards with the boys at Sinatra's house. And there was Dean Martin was there, Don Rickles, Angie Dickinson, Tom, and of course Frank. And he said one night they were playing cards, and Angie Dickinson was dealing. Now, Angie Dickinson is known for having a foul mouth. She's a gorgeous woman, exquisite, but her mouth was a little trashy. So at some point during the card game, one of the players asked everyone at the table, "What's the wildest thing you ever did in a car?" And Angie Dickinson jumped right in and said, "I gave a guy a blowjob." And someone else said, "Well, what's so strange about that?" Without missing a beat, she said, "I was driving the car."
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
You got to think about that for a second, but it's a funny story. But
I would.
my brother was taking pictures of Tom Dreesen and I at the restaurant, an Italian restaurant in a suburb of LA. And Tom said to my brother, "Take this one." And as he did, Tom leaned over and gave me a big kiss on the cheek. And speaking of kisses, that goes into another story. I'm heavily into music, as you may have gathered, but not only symphonic music, singers as well. And Shelley and I went to see Johnny Mathis at the Golden Nugget a couple of years ago in Atlantic City. And one of my pals is Chuck Renata. Chuck Renata is a music producer and authority on Sinatra. He used to host and go co-produce Nancy for Frank with Nancy Sinatra on Sirius Satellite Radio. And Nancy would do her show every week, play her father's music as well as others. Now, Nancy and Tina's favorite singer, oddly enough, is not their father, it's Johnny Mathis. So Johnny was on the show once and was interviewed by Nancy and Chuck. And so I knew Chuck knew him. And I said to Chuck, "Any chance you can get me backstage to meet Johnny Mathis?" He said, "Let me work on it." It took about 4 months. And apparently Johnny normally does not entertain people coming backstage. I think he just turned 86. So he's not a kid anymore. But Chuck told me that at the very last minute, a few days before the show, Chuck emailed me and said, "You're set." They said, "Just for you, Chuck, we'll do it." So Shelley and I got backstage after the show. We were with Johnny Mathis for about 15 minutes. He could not have been kinder or sweeter. Again, a sweet, gentle, nice man. And I told him, I said, "Mr. Mathis, I have loved you all of my life." I said, which is true. The very first LP that I ever bought in my life was Johnny's Greatest Hits in 1960, and I still have that LP on my shelf in my dining area. And Johnny Mathis, who I'm sure everyone knows is a gay man. I'm straight. I have gay friends. I have no problem with that. Johnny Mathis walked up to me when I said that, this close to me, took my cheeks in his hands and gave me a kiss on the lips. And And I was so
Wow.
touched by that. I thought, what a lovely thing to do. It was his way of saying thank you for
Thank you.
all the
Yeah,
years of appreciating my work.
exactly.
And he couldn't have been sweeter. And I was just so moved by that. I thought it was such a lovely thing to do. Um,
Very,
but that's
very
one of
personal.
my
Thank
many
you. Yeah.
memories.
Mm.
Yeah.
I have a
So,
question. Would you write any articles about Lon Chaney? I know he had like the old horror movies and the characters, but Lon Chaney was the man of a thousand faces. Would you what do you think about his work? How he did stop
I
motion, how he
think he
changed to
was
his
a
characters.
I think he was a brilliant artist, one of the greatest stars of the silent era, certainly, along with Doug Fairbanks and uh, uh, I'm trying to think of a name. He was one of the shining lights of silent cinema. He was a brilliant actor and magician. His physical transformations defied belief or imagination. He literally tortured himself to achieve those effects. Certainly in London After Midnight, which is a lost film, sadly, and The Phantom of the Opera. I confess I don't know enough about his private life to attempt writing an article, and I don't want to cheapen his
Well,
value or, I guess, my own by writing something of which I truly have little knowledge. But he's one of the great stars and one of the great artists of
yes.
of motion pictures. I have written articles about Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. My article about Boris Karloff's career was put on Sarah Karloff's website
hmm.
about her father. She seemed to like my work and put it on her website. And it's funny, I almost got to meet Sarah last summer. Um, we were in touch, and I was getting to ready to leave Los Angeles to come home for Philly. She was in Palm Springs and just coming back to LA when I was leaving. So she said it would have been nice to meet me, but maybe next year. So I'm hoping this summer I'll get together with Sarah, which
Well,
leads me into yet another boring story, if you guys don't mind.
Sure.
One of my favorite character actors, as I'm sure yours, is Nehemiah Persoff. Nehemiah Persoff uh, was in hundreds of television shows and many motion pictures. Started the Actors Studio in the late '40s. His very first film appearance was as the taxi driver in On the Waterfront with Brando. Anyway, a couple of years ago, I was sitting at home on a Sunday afternoon watching some cable channel, and they were doing an Untouchables marathon. And Persoff was on numerous episodes playing, I forget if it was Jake Gusick or one of those gangsters, but he was well known on The Untouchables and Twilight Zone and hundreds of other TV shows. Anyway, I thought, I wonder when he died. So I walked into the bedroom where I'm sitting now, turned on my computer and looked him up, and lo and behold, he didn't die. He was still alive. And he had become a painter, an artist, and was selling his artwork on the internet. He was quite elderly, so I took a chance. I found an email on his art site in case you're interested in buying a piece of original artwork. And I just wrote him an email and said, I'm a lifelong fan and yada yada, and how much I've enjoyed your work. And I was astonished. Within 60 seconds, I had a response from the man himself. And
Wow.
he said, thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. And we started emailing one another for months. And then I said, the usual, I'm coming to Los Angeles in a couple of months. I'd love to meet you. Is that possible? And he said, well, I'm quite old. I'm about to turn 100 years of age. I'd like to meet you, but it depends. Each day is a new challenge. Why don't you give me a call? Here's my phone number. Call me when you get in. So I got in, I telephoned him, and I said, uh, would you like to get together? And he started to say, well, I don't know, I'm not having a great day. And I said, no, 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 I perfectly understand. It's such an honor to know you, to talk to you. And I was about to hang up, and he said, uh, what time did you have in mind? So I said, I don't know, 1:30. He said, all right, come on over. So he lived, I can't remember the town in California, but it was a 6-hour drive each way.
Phew.
And my brother was doing the driving, and I said, look, this is up to you. If you don't want to do it, I certainly understand. And my brother, who's also a lifelong film nut, said, are you out of your fucking mind? It's Nehemiah Herzog. Of course I'm going to do it. So, so we drove 6 hours. We got there. We walked up the steps to his house, knocked on the door. We said, come in. And there was this frail old man sitting in a rocking chair with a blanket over his legs. And I introduced myself. I said, Mr. Persoff, I'm Steve Vertlieb. This is my brother, Erwin. And he said, have a seat. And we sat in the presence of this great character actor for a solid 2 hours.
Whoa.
I asked him questions. He told us endless stories about working, about the Actors Studio. He said he remembered in 1948 in New York going to a class at the Actors Studio with Lee Strasberg and Elia Kazan, and there was a young actor there who was going through his lines, and both Persoff and everyone around him was simply mesmerized by his reading. You can guess, I think, the actor's name was Marlon Brando.
Oh.
He talked about growing up in Russia as a Russian Jew. He felt he was working on his autobiography and asking me for tips on how to structure it. And I thought, who the hell am I to tell Nehemiah Persoff how to write his autobiography? I said, you can do it chronologically, or just think back to whatever story you want to relate, and take it from there and expand on it. I also asked him about Route 66. Now, Route 66 is my all-time favorite television show. I think if I had to pick several all-time favorite shows, it would be Route 66 with George Maharis and Marty Milner, followed by The Fugitive with David Janssen, and of course The Twilight Zone. Anyway, he did a couple of episodes of Route 66. The one in particular, it was a Beauty and the Beast story. He played a Polish who was hunched over and fell in love with this mute girl played by Lois Wilson. I think that's her name. She was in East of Eden with James Dean. At any rate, he had to achieve a certain effect with his teeth. And he went to a dentist and told him what he was looking for. He said, and the dentist said, well, I can file down all your teeth. And Persoff said, never mind, let me think of another way to achieve this. But he remembered the episode quite well, and it's one of my favorites. And it's a beautiful show where the girl is afraid of him because of his appearance, but he has a gentle soul, and eventually she falls in love with him, and they disappear together. I think it's called Incident on a Bridge. It is, if you have an opportunity to watch it, it's a beautiful story. And talking about leading into Route 66, in 1961, I was in, I forget if it was junior high or high school, might have been junior high, but Route 66 never filmed on set. They were always on location. The whole 4 years they were on the air. And it was transference, if you will. Erwin and I were these lonely kids living at our parents' house, um, and we lived vicariously through Todd and Buzz, George and Marty, traveling all over the United States. I heard they were coming to Philadelphia, and I went berserk. I thought, how? I was this little kid. I must have been 15 years old. How are we going to meet George Maharis and Marty Milner? So we cut school. If anyone at the school is listening, I'm sorry, it's a little late in the day to turn me into the
It was
authorities.
worth it.
But we heard that they were staying at the Marriott Motor Hotel on City Avenue. So we took a bus, we cut school, took several buses, went up to there, and walked in to the Marriott. And I'm terrible with names, but I know faces. I've always known faces. A guest star on the show that they were shooting was Murray Hamilton, who was the mayor of in Jaws. Murray Hamilton was playing a doctor in that episode, which was The Thin White Line, which became my favorite episode of the series. In the show, Marty Milner mistakenly drinks a drink with an hallucinogenic in it and goes crazy. And George has to find him. He's all over Philadelphia. At the end, wanting to commit suicide. Murray Hamilton plays the doctor who treats him, but Murray Hamilton was in the FBI Story as Jimmy Stewart's partner, in The Spirit of St. Louis with Jimmy Stewart, and of course he's best known, I shouldn't say best known, he also played Anne Bancroft's wife in The Graduate, but most known for the mayor of Jaws City. So we walked into the lobby of the hotel, and I see a man at the other end of the lobby on the couch reading a newspaper. And I nudged my brother and I said, I think that's Murray Hamilton. So we walked over to him and said, excuse me, sir, are you Murray Hamilton? And I think he was so blown away that these two little kids would know who the hell he was. He said, sit down. So we sat on the couch and had a half-hour conversation with Murray Hamilton, who couldn't have been nicer, telling us about working with Jimmy Stewart and all the films he had been on. And then George Maharis walked out of the elevator, and my heart stopped. And we spoke with him, and we met Marty Milner. And George Maharis said, we're about to go down to the Ben Franklin Bridge. Would you guys like to come down and watch us shoot? So, yeah, sure. So we took a bus down to Center City to the Ben Franklin. We were on one side of the bridge. George and Marty were on the other. And it was the scene, the climax of the episode called The Thin White Line, where George Maharis finally finds his buddy, Marty Milner, Todd Stiles, on the Ben Franklin Bridge, threatening to jump into the traffic and commit suicide. And we could actually hear George Maharis in character as Buzz Murdoch saying, please don't jump, buddy, I love you. So it's a moment I'll never forget. We came off the bridge and we saw George Maharis, and he gave us a big smile and shook our hands at the end of the scene. And when we were shooting The Man Who Saved the Movies, the gentleman directing the documentary, Craig Ellis Jameson, said, why don't we shoot a scene on the Ben Franklin Bridge where you saw the Route 66 being filmed? So we walked up to that spot 100 years later and filmed me watching, standing by the railing on the bridge, and it was kind of a magical moment, revisiting that moment from 1961. But it was very special. And as far as The Man Who Saved the Movies, we shot about 85% of it. We were in Pittsburgh, in Philadelphia, Los Angeles. In Pittsburgh, we had Veronica Carlson, the star of many Hammer films, Veronica was a cherished, a dear, dear friend of mine. I loved her dearly. I was truly heartbroken when she passed away about a year and a half ago. But I knew Veronica quite well from 1990. Um, but Veronica sat down for a half-hour interview for the documentary. I asked her, I said, I don't want to be presumptuous, but is there any way you would do an interview for the documentary? And she said, well, of course, you don't even have to ask. So sat down for a lovely 30-minute interview.
Hmm.
She talked about working with Peter Cushing in Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, and with Christopher Lee in Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. And then they asked her about me, and she said, oh, Steve knows everybody. But the first time I ever met Veronica was at a convention, again in Baltimore, and I just happened to be walking past her. She was in a room surrounded by fans, and our eyes locked as I passed by her, and she started talking directly to me. I knew she loved poetry, and I had written reams, hundreds of poems over the years, and I had with me a poem called Orphan of the Night, which was about a homeless little girl on on the streets of a dark city by the trash cans looking for somewhere to rest. And it was called Orphan of the Night, and I gave a copy of it to Veronica. About 2 hours later, rather, I was walking around the lobby of the convention, and I saw Veronica coming, and she walked up to me and dug her long nails into my arm
Ooh.
and nearly drew blood. And I said, why did you do that? And she said, your poem made me cry.
Hmm.
And from that moment on, we became fast friends. Veronica, I saw Veronica any number of times at conventions around the country. One time I stuck my head into an area where she had a table, and she smiled and said, there's my Steve. She would call me
Wow.
if she heard there was a blizzard in the east, hoping I was okay. But we had a wonderful relationship. I loved her dearly. But the point of my story was, I don't know if the documentary will ever be finished. Excuse me. We shot about 85% of it. We had lots of wonderful people, composers, directors in it. Paul Clemens from The Beast Within sat down for an interview. The well-known Australian film director, Philippe Mora, who directed the film, and also, I think, two of the Howling sequels, uh, all met at my brother's apartment and sat down for a couple of hours for an interview. We had composers, Lee Holdridge, who won an Emmy, and you might know him as the man who wrote the music for the old Beauty and the Beast television series, with Linda Hamilton and Ron Perlman,
No
who
problem.
wrote the beautiful theme for that. He was supposed to go off to Italy to conduct the next morning, and because I asked him, he drove an hour and a half to another composer's house, Mark McKenzie, just to sit down for an interview. So we had wonderful people. It was going very well. And then Craig, the director, ran out of money. He told me he maxed out his credit cards. I wanted him to come to Louisville, Kentucky, when I won the Rondo Hall of Fame award in 2016, but he couldn't afford it. So that never happened. But he maxed out his cards, and at this point, I don't know if it will ever be finished. It's a dirty shame. A gentleman named Scott Stoneback in Pennsylvania took an interest in it a few months ago, and said he has some backers, and um, he'll try to get some money going to finish the film. But his backers weren't interested. I can't say that I blame them. Again, I don't know if anybody really gives a damn about who I am. except my brother and my girlfriend and a handful of friends. But it's a shame because we had some wonderful people take the time to sit down and speak and at this point I don't know if it will ever be finished. All we have is a 2-minute trailer, which you may have seen. But it's, I don't know, maybe one day, hopefully before I pass on into the next life.
Oh. Wow. Hope so. I mean, it was fascinating stories. We'd like to see it. I mean, the interviews, everything you've done is just, wow. You've definitely done a lifetime of things you're seeing. You're a young kid in Philly, you grow up, you see the people you wanted to meet, you're the guys you idolized growing up, and you get to see these things. Not that many people can say that.
No,
So,
not a lot of people at all. And
not that many people can say that.
Yeah, that's.
I'm part of a vanishing breed. There's not too many people who are brought. I mean, I understand. I don't want to die. I don't want to get old. In my heart, I'm still a 6-year-old kid. In just looking at this stuff in awe, but my body is not cooperating. I don't know how much longer I'll be here. But having said that, I would hate to be growing up today. I mean, I thank God that I was born in 1945 and that the people the heroes that I grew up with, the Hitchcocks and DeMilles and Harryhausens and Bradburys and Bob Bloch and George Powell. I mean, when I go to the movies, this stuff was new instead of on Turner Classic Movies. And I'm grateful for the time that I grew up in and for the memories that I'll take with me to the grave. If there's an afterlife, I hope there is, and I hope maybe I'll see some of these folks again and give them a hug.
Wow, amazing.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, it's so important that it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and it's important to capture some of these stories. Whether we always talk about everybody has a shelf life, and we all expire sooner or later. Some before their time, some after. It's so important to put down the stories either in writing or on video or tell other people about them so they can remember them. And I mean, we've done it since caveman. We've always gathered around the campfire and told stories, or we've always drawn stories on the caveman wall. It's so important that we document these things because it's our life. It's something that's so fleeting, and it's so important.
At this tender age of 78 years, I've been through a lot health-wise with many, many hospitalizations, certainly the last 10, 15 years. I've been through bankruptcy and divorce and losing a career. And yet, when I sit in my living room by myself and I look at the walls and I see the memories, I think maybe, just maybe, my life is counted for something. At least
I hope so. Yeah, it sounds like it has. Definitely has. Plus, it's been fantastic to hear your stories on IFB here, and it's great that we're able to capture some of them. And I really do. I mean, I wish there was a way you could, write all this stuff down or whatever it may be.
Reading your work.
Yeah, it would. It'd be fantastic.
I hope my work will survive me. I'll leave you with this. I have one brand new article that premieres on Saturday, March 2nd. One of the people that I knew in my life was Marion C. Cooper, the man who wrote, created, co-directed, and produced the original King Kong. He succeeded David O. Selznick as head of RKO Studios when Selznick left to go to MGM to develop a minor epic called Gone with the Wind. Cooper was a war hero. He was a brigadier general in the Air Force
Oh
and
wow,
one of the
I didn't know
founders of
that.
Pan American Airlines. And
Right.
although I never met Coop, we became intense correspondents over the last 8 years of his life. He introduced me to Harryhausen, and I would have letters, packages, telegrams from Cooper, sometimes 3 and 4 times a week for 8 years.
Wow.
After he passed away in 1980, I visited his home and spent several hours with his widow, Dorothy Jordan. If you remember the opening scene of The Searchers with John Wayne, the mother whose family is massacred is Dorothy. So we spent an afternoon with Dorothy at the Cooper home in 1980 and looked at some of the artifacts. I was able to hold the original script with Cooper's handwritten notes over it in my hands while we were
That was
there.
John Wayne's best movie.
Yeah, I
The
agree.
Searchers.
And
Best movie.
when we were leaving, Erwin and I said to Dorothy, I wish that I could have met him. I wish that he were here. And she took my hands in hers and smiled and said, he's here. Anyway, I wrote an article about my relationship with Cooper and about his career. And of course, the last line, or not the last line, but the line on stage at the theater in New York before Kong escapes by Robert Armstrong as Carl Denham introducing Kong says he was a king and a god in the world he knew. And my article about Cooper, which debuts from File 770 on Saturday, is called Marion C. Cooper, a king and a god in the world he knew, which I think perfectly describes his life. And I'll leave you with that. And I thank you sincerely for your generosity and gracious kindness in having me on. And
Thank you
I
for
hope we can
sharing your
Thank you.
stories.
I
And
hope I can access this online somewhere
yes.
and share it with my
it'll be live as soon as we get done.
We'll be on
Well,
Facebook
again-
and YouTube.
Thank you, my friends. You take care. Thanks again, and
Oh.
God bless.
Thank you. And once
Thank
again,
you.
really appreciate you sharing your stories. And, it's a fan like yourself that fuels the rest of us. So here's to you, sir. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
L'chaim.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Wow. Wow. That was a good interview, I think.
That's just something that you don't get. You don't get those stories unless you run across somebody like him. You don't have the opportunity to sit and listen to somebody like that for so long. And today went a little long, but I mean, it's great to capture the story. I mean, all the people he's met and all the people, they're none of us have that opportunity because some of them have passed on. They're legends, and none of us will ever have that opportunity, but we can live those stories through someone else. And I think
what
that's
he
so
was saying,
important.
It brought so many memories back, like he likes the classic monsters. I grew up watching classic monsters, the classic TV shows, the movies, and it everything corresponded. Like I just learned so much. I didn't know that she was his wife in The Search. So I'm like, oh wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So,
That's fantastic.
I mean, it just grows. I watch Turner classic movies now too, but like, oh okay, and I see that movie, and I saw that movie too, and just an amazing interview.
Yes,
I really enjoyed it.
That's great. So unfortunately, we come to the end. We're rolling out of broadcast range once again on the base star and headed back out to back out to space. And we'll be back around. The orbit will bring us back around on Thursday. So please join us then. Do we know who's on Thursday this week?
Yes, we do. We have the author of The Last Marines. It's a huge sci-fi Panzer Dragon. I think it's T. Elliott, I think like that. I got his name, but it's the guy that does the Last Marines series. Good author. Good sci-fi.
Good sci-fi. Great. So anyways, thanks for joining us. And
thank you, everybody.
please see us next Thursday. And until then, remember, fans feel the fleet. So here's to you.
Hands for the flutes, everybody. Have a good week. Oh, I don't want to.